Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me. This is Miguel with SoCal Watch Reviews. Typically, I don't review watches that you can't purchase because I know what it's like. You see a video, you get hype, and you're like, where can I buy this? But unfortunately, this model, this Royal Guard 200, actually is sold out. Price for this guy was actually $450. Something I like about it is the vintage aesthetic. You may find that some skin divers from the 50s and the 60s really had this kind of aesthetic. Eberhard, I think, was one of the brands that I found on the internet that look very similar to this aesthetic. But one of the interesting things to note is that back in the day, a lot of people went to the same manufacturer. So a lot of these watch brands really look very similar and also all shared the same movement. Nowadays, obviously, it's a little different because people have in-house this and in-house that, which nothing wrong with that. That's a discussion for a different video. But let's quickly get into some of the specs of this watch. Of course, the whole entire watch is constructed of 316L stainless steel case diameter, 38 millimeters, lug to lug 47 millimeters. Thickness, it is a little bit of a thick boy because of the sapphire crystal. It's 14 millimeters lug width, 20 millimeters. The overall aesthetic of this watch is very unique. It's very different. It's in hand actually feels a little bit smaller. I like the drill lugs and the almost all brush finishing on the case. I mean, this is a tool watch and I like that aesthetic. The crown is actually really big on this guy, 7.5 millimeters. It has been signed and it is a screw down crown because this watch does feature 200 meters of water resistance. Now, I like this 120 click unidirectional bezel. It has a good feel to it, little back play. It has this kind of faded look to it, which I'm a fan of. I like ceramic, but this faded aluminum insert is actually really cool. It's this kind of blue gray color, and of course we find a lume pip at the 12 o'clock. Now moving on to the dial, this is striking. This is something very unique. You do find those triangles at the 12, 3, 6, and 9. This is midnight black with gilt printing, and it does feature Swiss vintage lume. Now the balance proportions and the clear legibility are very nice. At the 12 o'clock we do find the logo, the Imperial logo with that little crown, which again, if you look on the internet, you'll find other companies they look very similar. And yeah, I mean, that's a love it or hate it kind of thing, but it's pretty cool. It actually kind of grew on me, if I'm being honest. At the 6 o'clock we do find the words Royal Guard and the number 200, of course, for the water resistance. Now I like that minute hand, that when it lands on top of the other triangles, it kind of lines up, and it's pretty cool. It almost hides those indices, so I think that's pretty clever. I think that the way that it lines up, it's cool. It's a fun play. And also the second hand, when it lines up the other indices with the 5, the 10, the 20, the 25, it also kind of blends in with those. It overlaps, if you will. Now lume, they're saying they're using some Swiss vintage lume. It's actually pretty decent. It lasts a while, maybe not a few hours, but again, I didn't test it, but it glows pretty bright, especially for the price of $450, which this was. I like that. On the back we do have a screw down case back. There is some printing. I'm not a fan of this. I think it could have been a little bit smaller, maybe like a sterile case back, or maybe just written some of the information just around the case. See, you guys know this. I've said it before. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of writing on the case back. Moving on to the bracelet, this is interesting. So this look of this kind of flat link, I don't know. It's more reserved to me for, I guess, an Omega Speedmaster. If I'm being honest, is kind of what I think of. But when I first saw this watch, but when I have it in hand now in the metal, it's a good balance between this and the case. However, I'm not a huge fan of the polishing. If I'm being honest, I would have preferred an all brush look. I just think it's a little blingy because it doesn't really necessarily match the case too much. But the overall aesthetic, I think, is pretty nice. It does have, your typical kind of milled clasp with that logo on the top and the little deploying on the side. We do find some micro adjustments. There's 4 of them. Yeah, the bracelet is pretty well constructed. Solid links, solid end links, and it does utilize screws to size it. The bracelet actually goes from 20 millimeters and it tapers down to 16 millimeters at the clasp. Now, in terms of wearability, it wears pretty nice. This is a 6 and 7/8 inch wrist that I have, 17.43 centimeters for my for my European friends out there, or anybody outside of the US, really. But overall, I like this watch in terms of finishing quality for $450, which is what it was. I think it's pretty clever. I can't wait to see what the company has to offer. Again, Imperial Watch brand or Watch Co. Go check them out. They do have a website, imperialwatchco.com. And yeah, unfortunately, these are not available for sale. I don't know if anybody's reselling them, but yeah, these are pretty cool. I can't wait to see what the company has to offer next. And this is what I appreciate about micro brands. I mean, they revive some old brands, or old looks, I should say, that are no longer in production. And before I let you go, let me tell you about the movement. Automatic movement, Seiko caliber NH35, tried, tested. You can wind it, you can hack it, 41 hours power reserve. So yeah, I think for the price, what they were asking is actually a really good package. So I can't wait to see what they come out with next. Not sure how it's going to be priced or what they're going to feature, but let me know what you think about this watch. Obviously, it pays homage to some watch brands of the past. I dig it. I think it's good. Obviously, I would change a few things, such as like maybe the bracelet. Not so much the style. I think it kind of grew on me a little bit more. The finishing, maybe some of the finishing on the case could be beveled a little bit more, more classy. But overall, it feels like a real nice kind of tool watch, and it gives you this vintage vibe, which obviously Ben was going for. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and as always, my friends, stay humble.